Good day. Good evening and welcome once again to the Sunday afternoon fix. This afternoon we'll be doing a lot of talking because I have a few views that I want to share with you. I want to say welcome again, good afternoon to everybody on Jamaicans.com. Jamaicans, I'm going to try to sign in to Jamaicans.com. We got a couple of people online. Just want to say good afternoon to everybody. Let's see who's there. Melody Dinkins. Good evening to you, Melody. We're going to have a lot of people online. I'm not so sure if we're going to be playing music this afternoon. I have a lot of things that I need to talk about, and I want you to share with me some of these issues, especially if you have some kind of relationship to the Caribbean, whether you're a friend of or you're from Haiti or Cuba or Trinidad, Barbados, Jamaica, all of those islands. Share something in common. Share the education system. I wrote an article a couple of days ago. I wrote an article about the primary exit profile. It's a new system that's being implemented in Jamaica at this point in time. And that system, I feel, I don't have enough information about it. But one thing I know, it's there to balance out some of the injustices that we've encountered over the past few decades since independence. And probably prior to independence, we had what is called a common entrance exam. As I grew up, the common entrance exams, where children at the grade 6 level are given one shot at passing one exam after finishing 6 years of primary school to enter into the privileged high schools in Jamaica. Now, let me set something straight here. In Jamaica, there's a different message when it comes to high schools in Kingston versus high schools in the rural area. So we call Kingston, which is urban, right? And then we call the rest of the country. There's about a little bit over 500,000 people living just in Kingston alone, right? Close to about 600,000 people living in the Kingston area. Might be a little bit more now. And the rest of the 2.2 million people or 2 million people are sitting in the country areas, and we are talking about the only semblance of urbanization in the country area is Montego Bay, Ocherius, Mandeville, right? Possibly some parts of St. Elizabeth, definitely not St. Thomas, definitely not Portland, not St. Mary, not Trelawney. Am I getting there? Not Hanover, not Westmoreland, right? So urbanization only takes place. Urbanization, big time urbanization is in the city of Kingston. So let's talk about what I refer to as urbanization right now, right? It's where schools, grammar schools, traditional high schools, right, are in abundance. So in Kingston, you have as many traditional high schools, and KC and JC and Immaculate and Wolmer's and you name it. In Montego Bay, you have Cornwall College. Which other high school? Anybody can help me out during the 70s? Which other high school? There was Mount Alvernia. That's another high school. There was Montego Bay High School, right? That's another high school. Pretty much, let's see if I can think about any other high school. I think pretty much those were the traditional high schools. Mount Alvernia, Montego Bay High School, and Cornwall CC College, right? Big time. All right, so that's urbanization. All right, so in St. Elizabeth, you had Monroe, Stets, and Homewood, and probably one more traditional high school. In St. Anne, you have York Castle, you had St. Hilda's, probably 2 or 3 more big product high schools also. In St. Mary, you had one St. Mary. The entire St. Mary had one traditional high school. There's another one called Mount Alvernia, right? But you only had to pass half of a common entrance exam to get to Mount Alvernia during the time, because it was mostly a private school, and you know, if your daughter has to go to Mount Alvernia, you pay to go there, right? All right, so that public high school was just one. So in St. Mary, you had over probably 40 primary schools feeding this one, just this one high school, right? In St. Mary. And I'm using St. Mary because it's typical of the rest of the country. Remember, urbanization is where you have whole heap of high schools within a small area like Kingston or Montego Bay, you know, or St. Anne. In St. Mary, one high school, one public high school to serve about 40 or 50 primary schools, which means that only a certain amount of students go to this public high schools from these primary schools. In each of the primary schools, you probably have 6 places, 6 passes per primary school. Now, in my class alone, in grade 6 at the time, we had about probably 60 to 70 students at the grade. We probably hit 80. Because we have 6A and 6B, and each of the classes had like 40 kids, right? So in my primary school, each year, I don't think my primary school had more than about 6 places or 6 passes offered. And then all of the other primary schools in St. Mary had probably 6. Some may have 4. Some may have 2. But there are 40 kids in there preparing for common entrance exams. We are talking about common entrance exams in the 60s, in the 70s, in the early 80s, until they come up with GSAT. GSAT was not different either, okay? So a child in St. Mary, the message in St. Mary, right, is different from the messaging in Kingston. Because we are being prepped to pass common entrance, knowing full well only 5 or 6 or 7 of us can pass, can get the pass. And let me tell you this, for certain, because I've seen this. What happens with that kind of bottlenecking is that parents who are not very capable financially, right? Who are not very capable financially, will not get their kids, no matter how bright they are, will not get those kids in that high school. The only students who will get those 6 passes are going to be parents of nurses and doctors and police officers and inspectors and so forth. Those are the students, whether or not them bright, go and get to this high school. Because that bottleneck causes competition. And competition is not natural and fair competition. It's competition based on financial status, not the child. And it's unfair because a lot of kids who got bottlenecked out ended up in secondary schools, junior secondary schools. All right? Now, persons may wonder, what's the difference? What's the difference between going to a St. Mary High School or a Marymount High School versus going to a Port Maria Secondary School or a Islington Junior Secondary School? What's the difference? The difference is you are prepped differently. You are prepped differently in the sense that in the traditional high school, now you get to do O-levels and you get to do A-levels because you get a chance to go to 6th form, lower 6, and upper 6. Well, when you go to junior secondary school, not high school, It's different. Now, you are asked to take lower level exams like JSC and SSC, right? We're not talking CXC yet. CXC, none of the picture yet, all right? So I'm providing you with a background of what it was in the 60s and 70s and 80s when people were taking common entrance examinations to pass to go to high school, traditional high school, and only 6 places or 7 places per primary school, and there were 40 or 50 primary schools that feed this one high school, right? So, I see the government working, because back in the 90s, they converted the secondary schools, the junior secondary schools, to high schools, right? So they no longer call them junior secondary schools, they call them high schools or technical schools, right? So they opened up the gate for a broader an open door for anybody who takes common entrance exam can get to a high school. But there's still a problem, right? There's still a problem that in those same secondary school over the years, it's been 20 years going, right? Those secondary schools, the standard still have not improved. Academically, it has not improved, all right? Because we still find the traditional high schools still topping the charts, which means, if you think about it for a minute, think about this for a minute, right? There are certain high schools from 1960 until now who are continually, persistently making it at the top schools in the nation every year. Never fail, right? And we don't have to call the names. And I'm not listen, we have some of the brightest minds coming out of those schools, bar none. But do you think that something is wrong if for 50 years the 10 top schools make it top school every year for 50 years? Is there something wrong? Because it cannot be the teachers. Because a whole heap of the teachers, them dead and gone. Right? What makes the schools great are the students that perennially are bright. Where are those students coming from? They are being picked from the best of the nations, of the nation, to put into these primary, into these high schools, to retain the value of the high school over the years. And I'm telling you, we have had some of the brightest minds throughout the whole world, throughout the whole country, that go to these schools. Campions and Immaculate and you name these schools, they're always on top. If you check, you'll find that a lot of the students aren't from the immediate area of these schools, but they're from country, right? So there's something definitely wrong if for 50 years, listen, we have 29 basketball teams in America, right? 29. And the most wins that these teams have consecutive wins each year is 3. No go 4 yet. Did Michael Jordan go 4-peat? No. He went 3-peat, then him leave the basket. If he had not left, he would have gained the 4-peat. But he left the basketball arena, went to play baseball for a year, came back and then win another 3-peat. So, if there are only 29 basketball teams in America, and they've been running since 1948, and no team has gone 4 years repeatedly winning championships, right? It means that there is balance, because there is a way to get the other 29 teams involved in winning. So we have all teams getting a chance to be on top somewhere. So there's balance. So if we look at 10 schools in 50 years, and there are the same 10 schools every year making 1 to 10, there has to be a problem. We have over 300 high schools in the nation, and only 10 schools are doing top 10 for 50 years. So there has to be a problem. Are you following me? Because it is important to me why I'm out here talking about this. I want to take some comments. Let me see where these comments are. We have education think is yes, we have the greatest education. If you're born in September, you get 2. I got that. All right, you guys do just talk. Okay, yes. Well, I understand you, Steve M. McGrant, who says that we talk. Yeah, you know, someone has to talk about it, to be honest with you, my friend. Someone has to talk about the system. So I'm talking about the PEP program now that just came out, where I see where the government has moved from common entrance to GSAT, and they've also moved from changing some of the junior secondary schools to high schools. That's another. They're trying also now to get rid of the shift system that causes somewhat of a second-class citizen to the students on the evening shift. Because if you're in the morning shift, you get the brightest and the best teachers and the brightest students to relate to in the mornings. But in the evening, you know, who cares, right? And so they're trying to get rid of the shift system. That's another balancing act. And the other balancing act is that because there are only certain amount of schools with the best and the brightest, one of the reasons I may say, is that there are 30% of students who can move from high school into a job. The other 70%, them left behind. They're on the streets. They're doing nothing. 70% of graduates from high school in Jamaica aren't doing jack because we only plan for 30%. And it comes from that same common entrance message that we only take the best of the best and put them in the best jobs, and those are the only people can move Jamaica forward. We have a problem with that. So 70% are being left behind. So I see another balancing act by the government of Jamaica to do, instead of going to grade 11, they're going to grade 13. And so some students will be able to get or to choose a path of academics, just like you go to lower 6 and higher 6 form, right? And then they have another set of persons who are technically oriented, who are vocationally oriented, and they can choose a vocational area for the next 2 years. So we go up to grade 13 instead of grade 11. That's a great balancing act. Because when those vocational people leave, they can enter into the job market right away because they have a skill that they've developed over the past 2 years. Great job, great thing. So that's a nice balancing act. Instead of not doing anything, they have a chance to get out and be skilled at something, whether it's mechanic or painting or drafting, whatever it is, that they can go out to school and do their thing and become employed instantly. Rather than going to sit down, they went through 5 years of high school, preparing academically, and then when they're done, they weren't academically strong enough to enter into the workplace, so they do nothing at all. So right now, I like what the government is doing as far as extending those 2 years in high school for people to get an opportunity for vocation. So right now, the government is rolling out what is called PEP, Primary Exit Profile. Instead of the student taking one exam at the end of grade 6, they are assessed for a couple of years. They are assessed for the what it is that what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and then they are placed according to how it is. So that's another balancing act. Instead of using one exam to look at a child, they're looking at a child from grade 4, grade 5, grade 6 to see if what is it, the aptitude and what this child is capable of doing academically or vocationally. Is he technically oriented? Is he academically oriented? That kind of stuff, right? So now we are getting somewhere, a balancing act. It doesn't say anything whether or not there's going to be the haves and the have-nots getting their way, or the haves getting their way and the haves not getting nothing. It doesn't say that. It just says that the child is in focus, and they will be able to now look at the overall child to optimally prepare him for high school or technical school or comprehensive school, whatever it is. Right? So we have a better chance of looking at the child's profile rather than one exam and say, this is how we're going to place you. I feel good about that. No doubt about that. I feel good that the government is actually doing something about balancing something that we have had a problem with for a long time. So I just wanted the opportunity to come on and ask people and give you a chance to look at how I think about our education system as it has been for the past 50 years. Cherry Johnson, good afternoon to you. Christine, why is everyone saying you people? Aren't we the people? Thank you very much, Christine. Darnie Roddock says, loads of children needs financial help. I totally agree with you, Darnie. Totally agree with you, all of our children. And this is why I have let me back this up. I've spent a lot of years in giving back to my country, as do a lot of people. Many people do what they can to give back to their country, and I do too. But recently, we found, LASCO Foundation found me, and LASCO has decided that they wanted to form a foundation currently led by Dr. Rosalie Hamilton, and what the foundation is going to be focusing on is children and education, and those 70% who did not get the opportunity to get into a nice paying job or a big paying job, those 70% are going to be the focus of our attention. We want to change the trajectory of a child who lives in the deep parts of Mountain View, for example, around Clancarty, and we're going to look at the child whose trajectory is downwards, and we are going to take that child and try to change the trajectory to go upwards, right? Because currently in that particular area, those children are at risk. So we're looking at risk children and try to change how the outcome of their lives are going to be, right? Okay, so if you're in the worst part of Jamaica, name it, whichever part that we call the worst part, where crime is a scourge, right? Let's look at there, and we take a child and we give that child the same opportunity that a child that's going to immaculate from a good parent. Well, no, scratch that. I hate the word good parent in this sense, because I prefer to say a child who has opportunity. We want to give the child in the Mountain View area, or at Lovely and in Montego Bay, or what the worst parts of our country where we called where there's socio-economic problems deepening and getting worse. We're going to take a child from out of that area, and we're going to give them the same opportunity that a child at a middle-class family would get to go to Immaculate Conception. So, if the child wants extra lesson, we will pay for it. If a child wants a cleat because he needs to go to the football, we'll pay for it. If he wants a track shoe because he wants to go and run 100 meters, we're going to give it to him. If a child wants food, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we're going to give it to him. This is the program that LASCO Foundation is launching this year. This year, in Jamaica, it's launching, and up here in Florida, we're launching it in Orlando and in Miramar. So the persons who want to be a part of this, they can be a part of it. So you can offer a child $1,000 a year, right? And that will pay for the child going to school, if it's tuition, if it's extra lesson, if it's books, if it's uniform, if it's cleats, if it's jersey, shorts, whatever the child wants. So we want to see, after a few years, what will happen with those children that we have adopted if their trajectory is still going to be going down. We want to see their trajectory going up instead of down. Okay? And this is why I have formed, I've collaborated with the LASCO Foundation. We are bringing PJ Patterson up, the Minister of Education, Las himself coming up to speak to us to launch the foundation and also to raise some funds for these children. I think Las will be matching these funds, whatever we raise here. So if you have a chance to come and go to these there are two, one banquet and another kind of reception kind of a deal. It's going to be pretty good. We're looking to maximize up to about 1,200, 1,300 persons at the two events, 600 in Orlando and 600 in. It's going to be on November 17th. No, sorry, it's November 16th and 18th. November 16th and 18th. We are also going to have our host on the 15th of November a forum for trafficking, human trafficking. That's a topic that we're becoming quite aware of, that it has been a big problem in Jamaica. All right? So I'm going to tune out right now. I'm going to, if you have questions, I'll take any questions. Let me see if you have any questions for me. It says, do more, give man a fish, he will eat for a day, teach a man. I so agree with that, John. I love what you say. It is about empowerment, empowering people to do well. Because, you know, if you give somebody a fish to fill him belly today, what am I going to do? Go back from where they were yesterday, they're going to go back right to where they are. They are not going to be trying to go get fish, go fishing. But if you teach them how to get that fish, give him the line and say, go and get the fish. This is how, anytime you get the bite, poof, you choke it and come up. That's it. If you throw the line with the hook and the bait on it, and then you wait for what they call the nibble, right? If you feel the fish nibbling, pow, and grab it and pull him in, give him some length, pull him in, give him some length, pull him in and pull him in until him come on land. You have fish to eat. You might not only have one fish, you may have 12 fish, but you can share with everybody, right? That is what we are about. We are providing opportunities and empowerment, mentoring for students. That's what we want you to do for our kids. All right? Somebody else says, I love that idea. You would be surprised how many brilliant children are in the poor communities. Let me tell you, me know that. I'll share something with you, Christine. Christine, I grew up with about 12 bright kids. I mean, super bright kids. We all grew up from prep school, not prep school, I call it basic school, from basic school, and we all did well, and we were switching. Some people, sometimes one gets, them the days that we used to have, you come first, second, third, fourth, fifth, right? And so any year, any one of those students could be a top, second and third and fourth and fifth. But the difference between coming first and coming 12th is not very different. is like 0.1 or 0.2 points. That's how it ran each year, all of my primary school life. And then, only about 3 of those students got chances to go to traditional high school. And when when it was all said and done, right, I have reviewed the lives of all those 12. Them say, what is fear cannot be unfair, right? I look at all those 12, and they're doing darn well in life. And the ones who got a chance to go to high school, just a few of them doing well. It tells you something. It tells me it could go anywhere. Did we really fail the exam? The common entrance exam? I don't know. I didn't feel like I failed an exam. Right? And the other persons all over didn't feel like they failed exam either. But only 6 passes or 8 passes were allowed to go to a traditional high school. There are very bright kids, very, 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 very bright kids in the rural and in the lower socioeconomic areas. Very, very low. So trust me, I know what that is. I grew up in a Rockabessa. I'm not from Kingston like everybody else. I did not get 40 high schools to choose from. I chose somebody. I spoke with after the article that I wrote a couple of days ago. I spoke to a good friend of mine, and she went to Immaculate, and so she said, I couldn't believe, my friend, she didn't get to go to Immaculate. All she got was Oberlin High. Oberlin High is it's a whole traditional great high school. We get junior secondary. You don't pass, you go to junior secondary school. And you don't get to pass, you don't get to do O levels at the junior secondary school. You don't get to do, you get to do JSC. I don't know if you don't know name J. I had 18 of them. 18 JSC subjects I had. Got them so easy. Okay? I still left school at the top of my class. I left school at the top of school, of the top of my school that year. But I am not regretful, mind you. Listen, I would never trade my life for anybody else's because I have had a good one, right? I'm from a very, very poor family. When we were growing up, and I know most of you can relate to this, okay? I grew up until I was 12. In a tenement yard, all right? And in that tenement, follow me carefully here. In that tenement yard, there were 2 buildings. There were more than 2 buildings. There were 4 buildings. There was 1 kitchen, and I'll explain that to you later on. There was 1 outhouse, right? We don't want to call it what it is. 1 outhouse. So those are 2 buildings, right? The kitchen is made of sticks with zinc all around it and zinc on top of it. Okay? And inside was 6 rocks that made the stove. Only 2 families can go into that kitchen at any time. The other 2 buildings in that yard had 3 rooms each. 3 rooms each. My family had 5 of us. My best friend's family had 7 of them. And each of us had 1 room. Not 1 bedroom, ladies and gentlemen. Not 1 bedroom with a hall and a bathroom and kitchen. No, I'm talking about 1 square 8 by 8 room. 1 8 by 8 square room. That's what I grew up in. That room could only hold one bed. My daddy and my mom slept on the bed. So guess where me sleep? Guess where the three of us sleep? All right? We sleep on the floor. And we never had mattress down there. What we had was old clothes and old sheet that we had to spread on the ground. And sometime at night time, you hear my sister them bawl out. Why? Ladies and gentlemen, Leah just peeping them up. All right? So listen, I know what that is. 6 families in 6 rooms. 1 outdoor kitchen with smoke. In time them cook, you cannot stay close to it. And 1 outhouse. All right? And I know that inside that yard, we had some very bright students. Never underestimate the power of good training from people who we call poor. Because my house was never dirty. No matter if I 1 room. And that kitchen outside, even though it's ground, even though the floor is dirt, it clean. And the yard always clean. All right? So we know that bright people come from those areas. We know that. It is not something that is unknown. It's whether or not those opportunities that are out there are given to these kids. Because if they're not given the opportunity, they are not going to do well. Not for a while. They'll find themselves later. Because what I feed them cannot be unfeed them. Right? If you're bright, you're always bright. Because you're always seeking opportunities to do better. So nobody can take that from you. But what they can take away from you is the opportunity, the early stimulation. The early opportunity to go to a streamlined educational academic facility to make sure that you do the best that you can to get where you want to go. That's what this is all about. And we weren't getting that, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? So, I am applauding the Jamaican government, and I'm not saying anything about JLP or PNP, because both parties have something to do with the transition from one thing to the next by creating balance. Balance through PEP, that's primary exit profile. Balance through opening up high school from converting from the old junior secondary schools to all high school. That's one. We still need more work because we need to balance out the students who are going to these schools, balance out the teaching and the pedagogy, balance out everything, all the opportunities for the students, so all schools have the same amount of chance to do well. But it's happening. Balance also in creating opportunity for 2 extra years, and not just for the bright to do 6th form, 2 years in 6th form, but to offer the people who have shown aptitude for technology and vocation, give them those 2 years too. Let them learn how to be a great mechanic. Let them learn how to be a great techie. Let them learn how to be a great hands-on person. And at the end of the day, what will happen is that you will find more balance going out into the work, more balance of people understanding what to do when they go out into the workplace. A better society, more educated society, right? That's what this is all about. Not everybody is going to be academically great. Some people are going to be vocationally wonderful. And guess what? Most of the vocational people are them make most of the money in the world today. Because they mean their own business. So why aren't we getting it that academics is very important, but also vocation is also very, very important? That we have to balance that. So I'm glad that the government is trying to do its balancing act. This is great for me. My name is Leo Gilling, ladies and gentlemen. And I hope that I have enlightened you. Thank you very much, Lloyd. Lorraine, Phillips, thank you for joining. Christine, oh my God. Stallion, nice. Thank you for joining. Joan, thank you for your thoughts. Jennifer Allen Kennedy, thank you. And I just want to say thank you. We'll do this again because I have a lot more issues that I need to talk about. And I hope that you can join me and share on my thoughts. It's been a wonderful time. I'm tired now.